And Labor, along with the Greens, Central Alliance and Jackie Lambie, have come together to scrap the coalition's mandatory sentencing for pedophiles bill. The government has tried before, a few years ago, to get similar legislation passed, but Labor says mandatory sentencing can have adverse effects and possibly lead to less convictions. The Law Council of Australia agrees, saying that sentencing can't be a one-size-fits-all approach and could prevent judges and juries from taking into account all of the details. Ben, Peter Dutton says that Labor has put pedophiles above kids. Do you think that's a fair statement?
No, not necessarily. I mean, to be honest with you, this whole story seems a little bit murky, if you ask me. Not necessarily sure what Peter Dutton was trying to get, what point Peter Dutton was trying to get across, to be honest with you.
I think there's a point that the coalition have tried to say, you're a pedophile, you go to jail. You know, like where mandatory sentencing, you don't get a warning, you don't get parole, you don't get a good behaviour period. You go to jail because kids are at risk. Labor and the others have said, well, hang on, we don't know about a one-size-fits-all, because what they're saying is that just say there's a circumstance where the it's a little murky, to use your word. It's a little murky in the fact that, you know, maybe this was a one-off occasion. Maybe the person has declared that they've done the wrong thing. They've been getting help. I don't know. I don't know what it could be. But they're saying that if that was the case, they're unlikely to get a prosecution, because a jury and a judge would be like, well, I've got to sentence you to 10 years jail or whatever it is, rather than work on other ways of sentencing you. I still have a problem that if we're involving pedophilia, I do think there needs to be a hardline approach. I mean, I'm actually all for castration. If these pedophiles cannot change the way they are, I have no problems with castrating them.
Yeah, look, I think that you've made some valid points there, but I still believe that every individual situation needs to be looked at carefully. For me personally, when I hear about anyone who has committed some sort of pedophilic act, then I want them thrown away, and I think castration is something that we could look at, you know, because it's disgusting, it's horrific. However, I then have to relay the same way that I think about everything. And I just think, you know, I don't understand the legal system. I don't understand why Labor was particularly saying that. So I feel uncomfortable to talk about it. Yeah. But I think there must be a purpose behind it. I think Peter Dutton's just trying to jump on something that's going to rev up the Australian public.
And the right-leaning base, there's no doubt about that.
Mandatory sentencing is a worry, and we learnt this when in some states, I can't remember if it was federally, but in some states, forgive me for not knowing the facts, where there was mandatory sentencing in Northern Territory. That's where it was, and it didn't work. You can't have a one-size-fits-all kind of approach to it. If someone comes along and they've done these heinous crimes, I don't want there to just be this kind of, you know, slipper, like one, you know, the glass foot from Cinderella kind of fitting in and everyone fits into it. I just don't think that that's the right way to go. I want the judges and juries to have all of the information possible so they can give the harshest bloody sentence possible to these people.
But don't we need to set a precedent saying that this behaviour is not acceptable? And what you just missed, we actually talked about castration being an option.
Yes, of course, that they need to be thrown at the book. But if you've got a mandatory sentence and, you know, someone's done, you know, X and Y, right? And then another person's done X, Y, Z, E. But they're both going to be fallen under this mandatory sentencing, which is wrong, because they should both be, you know, convicted to the full extent of the law. But if you've got these kind of prerequisites to go down, that I think murkies the water. The Law Council of Australia has said this, that, you know, a one-size-fits-all doesn't work. And you're more likely to lose convictions against people like this because of that mandatory sentencing. It needs to be the full extent of the law, I think. So what I think we're seeing here is with mandatory sentencing, you're not getting the full punch. You're getting kind of a weak and kind of a different punch, especially with these kind of offences. We want the full force of the law to come at them and give them the best and you know, and most severe sentence possible for what they've done. But I just think that mandatory sentencing, that's what Labor has said, that's what the Greens are saying, that's what Jackie Lambie is saying, that's what the Law Council of Australia is saying. We want the full force of the law, and I worry that with this, it wouldn't work.
It's the Ben, Rob and Robbo, Ben, Rob and Robbo, Ben, Rob and Robbo